I have the privilege to introduce a gentleman that I have got to know, and I would consider friend now, even though we've only known each other a short amount of time. But when you know this gentleman, like you get to meet him, you feel like you've known him. He's so engaging, so warm, and so loving. And you'll experience the energy that he gives off. And again, the energy and attention that you guys give to the speakers, it's going to up their game as well, okay? So can I have a commitment from everybody that you're going to go all in, okay? Today, you're going to give energy to the speakers, right? You're going to give smiles, okay? I want to see smiling. I want to see lots of teeth and smiles and just head nods and all that, okay? We're going to do that, all right? Okay, great. So this gentleman comes by way of Canada. He's actually on the board of directors of EXP with Mr. Gene Frederick as well. And just an absolutely dynamic gentleman. Amazing story. I don't know exactly everything he's going to share. We've had to really condense time down. Like Raul said, he goes, man, I could go for an hour, 2 hours. Yeah, well, all the speakers could go for, so we have to really cut it down. So I don't know how much of his story is going to go into, but I mean, he was from homeless to deca millionaire, right? That's 10 million or above, right? Amazing stories. He sits on at least three or four boards as a board of director or what have you, paid positions for companies and so on, wanting his insight, wanting his wisdom and so forth. Just absolutely incredible. He was recently knighted, okay? Now to put that in perspective, you have to be nominated. He was nominated not by one person, but two people. 400 people in the world were nominated, and only 24 went through the gauntlet and accepted. And Sir Darrin Jacklin was one of those. So please give a warm welcome to Sir Darrin Jacklin by way of Canada. He came on his own dime. I literally had not met him other than seeing him on a Zoom, and I said, man, you are dynamic. I want you to come. And he goes, sure, on his own dime. I go, wow, hey, the book I read says you receive not because you ask not. So I'm like, I think I'll ask to see if he'll come. He goes, but I'm actually speaking at a huge conference in Boston. Now, he lives in Vancouver, Washington area. Canada. And he goes, yeah, talk to my travel itinerary person, and I'll move my flight around. And so we got in at midnight last night, 12:30, and he was up this morning hiking the mountaintop, doing his hike and all that stuff. He's dynamic. You guys are in for a treat.
Thank you. Wow, well, I'm grateful to be here. It's interesting. I was sitting in the back there, just taking it all in, and in my life, and thinking, how did I get here? How do I get to be here? You know what I mean? Think about some of us where we come from. To be in a home like this of opulence is incredible. I never grew up this way. Right? I didn't grow up in an environment like this. Right? This is something I would see in the movies or on television. Right? So quite an experience to really be here and mark the moment. I'm really honored, really grateful that you've qualified your time to really be here. Right? Some of you had to rearrange your schedule, your summer vacations, be arranged with family, with pets, all that stuff, to really be here. And I have a short period of time, but in the time I'm with you, I really want to maximize the time to really give you some practical information that can really help you, right? One thing is you, another thing is the next generation. We have to, how many in this room have children? Okay, good. I have a foundation that I created with my partner, Tatiana, who was a high school teacher for 35 years. Does anybody know what the #1 most lucrative industry is right now in the world? Human trafficking and organ harvesting. And the last few weeks, I've been exposed to some stuff I'm not going to go into detail and talk about, but it is a huge problem in this country and around the world. And I've had a chance to witness little girls that are 7 years old being sold for $1. I've witnessed it. I've seen it in front of me. I've seen human traffickers. And I've been told I can't do anything because I won't leave the country alive. And I'm sharing this with you because you are here today in an environment that it's not about you. I want you, as you're here this few days, to think about the legacy that you want to leave. I want you to think about creating generational wealth. And it's not about the money. It's not about living like this. You don't have to live like this. But it's about solving problems, making a difference in the world, doing things for other people. Something I discovered years ago through my training development and through my mentors is that the secret to living is giving. I want you to think about that, right? And here's something I'd like you to write down for those of you who are taking notes. And I want you to sit with this statement I'm going to share with you. And for those of you who write out affirmations, those of you who write affirmations on the mirror or the sun visor, you maybe pray daily, you daily affirmations, I would like you to include this in your life. And if you just for a moment put your hand on your heart, and I'd like you to say this: my success is someone else's miracle. And I want you to think about that and feel that and the vibration of that your success is someone else's miracle. That the more successful you become through your character, through your integrity. One of the reasons why I serve on this board of directors of eXp World Holdings is because the leadership and the foundation of the men and women who serve in this company are integrity. One of the things that I look for in discovery and due diligence is integrity. I have a group of companies, and I have a team of women that run the day-to-day operations. And men, I'm going to share with you right now that the best coach in your life is, if you're in a relationship, is your wife or your girlfriend. They're the greatest coach in your life. Okay? You will learn a lot. Kevin O'Leary, how many of you know Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank or Dragon's Den? So I've met Kevin a few different times. And behind Kevin O'Leary's success is a team of women that run the day-to-day operations. And he will tell you that. And I've asked Kevin, why don't you ever talk about that on national TV? You know what he said to me? Nobody ever asks. Nobody ever asks that question. So the thing is I want you to consider is that your success is someone else's miracle. Or our success is someone else's miracle. And the more successful you become, the more you can influence. And success is not something you go out in the world to pursue. My background for many years, for 25 years, as a corporate trainer, I trained the largest corporations all over the planet. Trained, developed over 1 million people in 48 countries on 4 continents. Had 157 of the Fortune 100 companies were paying clients of mine over that 25-year span. And one of the things that a lot of the people went to is, how many ever notice you meet people that are really smart people, but yet, and no disrespect, they're working for Uber, they're at Payless Shoes. You're thinking, okay, why is this that they're so academically smart, or they're incredibly brilliant, but they're doing this? And what I discovered is awareness. They can be extremely smart, but they're not aware. Extremely smart, but they're not aware. And one of the things I discovered is when I came across this business model in 2013, eXp had just a couple hundred people in the entire company. We were building the airplane as we were flying it. We had no money. We had big hopes and big goals and big dreams going against some of the biggest players in the industry with deep financial pockets and decades of brand recognition and experience. But Glenn Sanford, the founder of eXp, was tired of the way the agents and brokers were being treated in the industry, being transactional versus being relational. And that's a difference. As part of your discovery and due diligence, for some of you who are in discovery right now or due diligence, look at what you're looking at. Is it transactional or is it relational? Because we are in the people business. How many in this room would like to earn a lot more money in your life? So one of the questions I always ask for, well, where's the money? How many ever think about that? Where's the money? I'm doing all this hard work. Go, 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 go. I'm making phone calls, following up, prospecting, doing all this stuff. But where's the money? The money's not showing up. So here's what I'd like you to write down. As human beings, if we're up in the International Space Station looking down on planet Earth, here's what we are. All we are is a network of conversations. Today and tomorrow that we're here, we are a network of conversations. Everything that you really, really, really want in your life is going to come from having conversations with strangers through a network of conversations. Everything you're going to want in your life is from conversation with other people. Everything you want is in this room. Okay? Some of the people, if you do your research, We've had some very famous people, some very influential people come into this house just in the last few weeks and few months that have stayed here. Okay? So sometimes we put people on a pedestal, we put ourselves in the pit, and we think, well, they're more successful than us. One of the things is, and yesterday I was with a Major League Baseball player yesterday in Boston. Guy plays Major League Baseball. And I asked him, I said, what differentiates you from everybody else? He goes, two things, my daily habits, my daily routines. Because if you study what professional athletes do, people that play at the highest levels, even in this room, the people that are in this room that are at the top of their game, that are high-performing people, it's daily habits and daily routines. That's what I focus on all the time. And so think about your habits and routines. Would you want us to follow you around for a week and watch and observe everything you do and then put it up on the screen and then train and develop everybody? It's good awareness. It's an awareness. The other thing is, too, is as the more successful and influential you become, the more people will respect and admire you. Now, with that, you're going to get hugged and you're going to get slugged. I want you to always remember, you're going to get hugged and you're going to get slugged. You're going to get kissed by some people and kicked by some other people. So you're going to get hugged and you're going to get slugged. You're going to get kissed and you're going to get kicked. And you're going to get supported and you're going to get challenged. So hugged and slugged, kissed and kicked, supported and challenged. Now, as part of becoming successful, this morning when I went up this morning to go hiking, I realized I was elevating very quickly. It's pretty steep. You've been up there. It's quite a ways to the top. And I do a lot of hiking. I hike about 60 miles a week. So I'm in pretty good shape with hiking. I hike some of the biggest mountains in Canada. And I love it. Now, why do I hike? Because a couple of years ago, I was overweight. I was 40 pounds heavier. And I was out of integrity with myself. I was treating my body like a woodshed, not like a temple. And I had to confront myself. And sometimes you have to confront yourself. Are you really doing what you're doing? Or are you actually fantasizing and lying to yourself? And sometimes you have to go for a walk today or tomorrow or the next couple of days and go for a walk and say, am I really selling out on my family with what I want to do? Because one of the things you want to look at as we get older, I turn 50 next weekend. And I don't even feel like I'm going to be 50 years of age. And I looked at myself, wow, all the things I've done in my life, coming from a small town. And some of you may or may not know my backstory, but I failed grade 1 of public school. And I was misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability. And I was put into special education classes from grade 1 to grade 12. I never went to regular school. And I was told I would never amount to much, never go far, never do anything in my life. Right? And I was told I would probably never graduate from school, from high school. And I was told all these things growing up. Anybody ever go to special education? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And all these things that I was told. And when I recently got knighted by the royal family to become, one of the very few people on the planet to be knighted by a royal family. And, like a Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson, Sir Elton John. And when I was there being knighted, there's 400 people that were nominated for the world. And we're talking some very high-level achieving people, well-known names around the world. And out of the 400 people, there was 24 men and women chosen for the world, 15 men and 9 women. I was one of the 24 in the world. And I thought to myself, how did I get here out of almost 8 billion people on the planet? How did I get here? And it was quite an experience for 6 months of going through the interviews and the due diligence and the background checks and all that stuff. And I thought, how did I get here? And what I realized was it was my character. It was the early mornings. It was the late nights. It was the thousands of hours behind the scenes that nobody ever saw. It was the days where I was getting rejected, making 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week. Did over 100,000 cold calls over a 5-year period, and I was 3, 4, 5 months behind on paying my bills. There was times I made phone calls not knowing if my phone was going to get disconnected on the next call. Watching my car get repossessed and dragged in front of the neighbors because I was 4 months behind on paying my car payments. I used to have an R9 credit rating. For those of you in the U.S., you don't know what that is. In Canada, R9 is the worst case scenario credit score you can get. R9 is like a very low 300 FICO score. Okay? High risk. In fact, I was so broke one time that I went to declare personal bankruptcy and I couldn't afford to go bankrupt because I couldn't afford the application fees to file for bankruptcy. This is so I can train people like some other people in the room on financial management because I know what it's like to eat my next meal also out of a garbage dumpster. I've had those days as well, right? My next meal out of a garbage dumpster. So you're going to go through adversities. You're going to go through peaks and valleys. Success is a series of well-managed failures. But the failures are feedback. The failures are lessons. It's going to teach you. This business isn't easy all the time. It's challenging. It's demanding. And that's one of the things about your life is that you have a chance in this opportunity here with EXP that you can share the model with other people. You can mentor and train and develop and plug people into the environment. And you can have a chance to have your fingerprints on other people's lives. You have a chance to help people win in their lives. You have a chance to create things that people never thought. You know, just people coming here. How many, when you pulled up today, was mind expanding just driving up the driveway here? Be honest. How many just like, wow? How many took pictures or sent videos to your kids thinking, wow? Like this is, you know, and you look at the engineering, the architecture. You look at all the manual, physical labor of the men and women to put this together. That one person had an idea, had a dream to build this place. Do you think he probably had some challenges to build this place? Sourcing the money, managing the money, figuring things out. Probably didn't go on schedule, on time. Whole bunch of things behind the scenes that he went through to build this place. It's a multi-million-dollar place, right? And the thing is that he has a dream. And I want you to look at what your dream is. Here's what I'd like to ask you. Who in this room has written goals? Wow, that's high. That's phenomenal. I ask that sometimes people, very few people put their hands up. I write my goals out every morning as a daily habit. I write them out a minimum of 730 times a year. I have my top 10 goals. I have over 7,000 written goals that are documented on paper. Over 7,000 goals. I've been doing it over years. Now why? Because I want to live an incredible life. Because I don't know when I'm going to expire. I am very blessed in my life because my mom used to be a palliative care nurse. My mom worked in palliative care, and what I discovered about palliative care is gratitude. Counting your blessings every day, realize that you have a chance to live and grow up in a country that no other country in the world has the name dream behind the name of the country. You don't have the Australian dream, you don't have the China dream, right? You don't have the Bangladesh dream, you have the American dream. And I never understood until I started traveling and doing humanitarian work around the world and going to some of the poorest countries on the planet, where I realized, wow, how much of an opportunity we have here in this country, or here in this continent of North America. So I want you to think, and here's what I invite you to do. You have some influential people in this room that have accomplished things with their children, with their faith, with their relationships, with their finances, with their health and fitness and nutrition. You have people in this room as a resource, as a mastermind, who've accomplished a lot of things. You have people in this room who've created and set up generational wealth for generations. You have people in this room who are doing things for charities, their churches, foundations, nonprofits, humanitarian groups. You have people in this room that are solving some big problems in our school system, our educational systems. And I invite you over the next few days that you're here to have conversations with these folks that are here in this room. And start to see, most people, you know what they talk about? Most people, and here's what I'd like you to write down. I want you to be observant to, in terms of awareness. Most people have 4 topics of conversation. They talk about the news, the weather, sports, and traffic. That's surface conversations. News, weather, sports, and traffic. What I want you to do is over the next couple of days you're here, find out what people are really committed to in their lives. What are they really up to? What do they really want to accomplish? What do they really want to solve for in their lives? Because here's the thing. My life really changed with one person. I was in a Toastmasters group back in the 1990s. I ended up in Toastmasters because I did multiple suicide attempts to end my life. And on my final attempt of driving my car at 140 kilometers an hour, 85 miles an hour towards a telephone pole, I stopped the car. And I realized I couldn't do it. So I turned myself into a 24-hour crisis line prevention organization. And they introduced me to a Dale Carnegie program and through a Toastmasters program. And one lady who was in that program named Sue Urquhart, she's still alive to this day, but she believed more in me than I believed in myself. And as a result of that one woman, I've had an influence on millions of people's lives around the world. Because of one person believed more in me than I believed in myself. So I want you to consider in this business, you have an opportunity to do agent attraction. And some of you feel you're not good enough. Because you know one thing about as a life as a human being, we want to look good and we don't want to look bad. Just notice today as an awareness, throughout today, how many times you're going to look good and not want to look bad. Some of you early this morning, you didn't want to look, I asked Gene earlier today, should I wear my suit? Because I didn't want to look bad, right? And I wanted to look good. But just notice the condition of being a human being is our awareness of looking good and not wanting to look bad. How old are you? 7. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing her here. Are you having fun? What do you think about being in this big house? Is this exciting? Right? You see, for us as adults, this is pretty big. But for someone of her size, this is even much bigger. Right? Right? So this is astronomical, this I think. So as we're here, you have a chance to have conversations with people. You're in an environment that is different than the traditional, I call it traditional, or as Gene Frederick calls it, outdated, right? Real estate industry, where you get a chance to hear other people. And I want to invite you in October to the EXP conference in Las Vegas. If you've never been there, it's an experience like never. Because here's the thing. You get a chance to model other successful people because success leaves clues. You get a chance to work on your character. You get a chance to work on your listening skills. You get a chance to work on your vulnerability. It's one of the things I'm working on in my life with men is allowing men to tap into their vulnerability. Because as children, we're taught as men never to express our emotions. I was taught to compartmentalize, right? But yet the juice of life is sharing the emotions of life. Because as we go through the peaks and valleys, we have to express what we're feeling, not always just what we're logically thinking. And so consider this environment being an incredible training development environment to help you get what you really, 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 really want in your life. You have a chance to mentor and train other people. I invite you that when you go to events, I'm not even an agent. I'm a real estate investor. I have multiple real estate properties. I have a portfolio of companies and a family foundation. But every time I go to events, except for here, because I was just coming in from a mergers and acquisitions conference in Boston I was speaking at, the thing is, I bring people with me all the time. Because I plug people into an environment where they can grow and they can expand and they can develop themselves. People are waiting for an invitation. There are a lot of agents right now that are out there that are scared if the market changes. How are they going to pay their monthly fees? Are they going to go further into debt? Are they going to have to tap into their children's savings that's reserved money for college or university and borrow from that in the temporary and hopefully pay it off in the next couple of years before the children grow up? These are things that people are thinking about that don't talk to you about it. But you have a chance to mentor other people, to train other people, to develop other people. And as it gets growing, you get a chance to step back and realize that you had a chance to have influence and impact in someone's life. It's like when I go to Africa and I walk into a village and knowing that that little 7-year-old girl is not going to be sold for $1 to feed her family. And that little girl will never be able to repay back. And Tete and I we're building schools now. So people say, why are you building schools in Africa? Why don't you do stuff in North America? Because we go into some of the darkest places in the world where people don't have a chance. And when you walk in there, thank you. And some of you may have a chance in the future to come on a humanitarian trip. And in the morning, we'll go walk for water. And you'll realize that when you have a shower, how blessed you are, how grateful you are. When we'll go walk for water. I'll take you on an experience where we'll walk 2 miles and we'll go get dirty water from a stream and come back. And we'll spend 3-4 hours doing that. And you'll realize how grateful you are in your life to live in this country and to realize the opportunity that you have in front of you, that you just got to take action. See, if I took everybody in this room right now and I handed out everybody sticky notes, we handed out sticky notes to everybody, and I asked you in private, with nobody looking over your shoulders, to write down your 3 biggest problems or challenges in your life. And you can write them down on the sticky note, and then we'd have people anonymously pick them up, and we put them all up on the walls here. We put all the sticky notes up here. If I took people on the humanitarian trips and I lined them up and brought them in this room and they looked at this would be a vision board for them. These would be goals and dreams. Your biggest problems in your life, personally, professionally, that to them would be a vision board of a dream board to them. They would fight over your problems because they would realize that that is something that they would want in their lives. And so while you're here, take it in from the heart and feel it, that what you've been blessed with, that it's a divine appointment that you're here. It's not by accident. How many believe that it's not by accident that you're here? Right? It's not by accident that you're here. To be around folks like this, because I years ago, I used to think, why am I here? I'm not smart enough to be in a room like this. I'm not good enough to be around people like this. Who am I? How can I contribute? How can I go talk to a guy like Gene Frederick? Who am I? Like, why does he want to talk to me? I'm nobody. I'm just getting started. Who am I? How many of you ever noticed how accessible Gene is? Right? Now, if you look at how corporate America defines success and influential people, does Gene fit the profile? Right? Humble, down to earth, servant. Him and his wife do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that he never talks about. So a lot of stuff goes on in him and his wife's family that they do for humanity they never talk about. They're like a mystery shop. They're a secret because they're low profile and high impact. Low profile and high impact. And that's what you can do in your life is you can become low profile, high impact. And you can serve a lot of people. So in the time I have here, what questions do you have? I'm going to open up to any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am. Good question. Yes. So I journal every morning. So what I do is I write out my personal, so I don't call them goals. I have my top 10 personal promises. So these are things I've committed to, my top 10 personal promises. Now, we're here in the month of July of 2022. So what I invite you to do, how many in this room wrote down goals at the beginning of this year? So what I want to do, how many of you like sports? How many of you know sometimes in halftime, when they go back during halftime, that's when the game changes in sports. So what I want to invite you to do over the next few days, and if it doesn't happen here on site at this retreat, that you schedule it in your calendar what we call a halftime adjustment. And what a halftime adjustment is you're going to review your last 6 months of your goals. I'll give you an example. I failed one of my goals this year in my relationship with Tatiana. I got so focused. Tatiana and I just completed a bunch of acquisitions. We just bought a bunch of CPA firms. We're rolling up a bunch of CPA firms. And I got so focused on the acquisitions and the transition planning that I took date nights out of the calendar. And I focused on that. And over the last couple of weeks, when I went through my adjustments, halftime adjustments for half the year, I looked at myself of where am I at with my goals that I set forth at the beginning of this year, personally and professionally. And I gave myself a pass or a fail. And I was honest with myself and I said I failed in this area. So I went back to Tatiana just a couple days ago to restore my integrity because I was out of integrity. And I acknowledged and I apologized for her being my partner and partner in life, how I didn't pay attention as a priority to her in the relationship. And I owned it. And I told her how much of a jerk I've been over the last 6 months of blowing that off. And I got present to her and listened to her of what the impact was in her life as a result of not putting her as a priority. Because I got focused on the acquisitions and on the acquisition teams. And sometimes in your life, in your relationships, you need to have an uncomfortable conversation. You need to look at yourself and realize I'm off track. I'm not on track with these goals. And so one of my daily routines is I write down my personal promises every day. okay? My personal promises. Next thing I do is I write in my journal, I have a private conversation with myself. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I have a private conversation with myself. And I just write things down on paper, whatever comes to me. Now, one of the things that I do is I also schedule, as part of weekly habits, thinking time. So I schedule 3 to 5 hours a week of thinking time. Now, I always get asked this question, well, what do you think about? I think what I'm thinking about. See, most people don't think what they're thinking about. It's awareness. Awareness. Most people don't think what they're thinking about. They're just on autopilot. Have you ever taken the time to think what you think about? Have you ever taken the time to actually question where your values and your beliefs come from? Have you ever sat down and actually written down on paper, where do your money habits come from? Where do your relationship habits come from? When something happens in an argument or dispute in your relationship, you just automatically get triggered. You're automatically just reactive. Versus saying, wow, that's not me, that's my father there. That's my mother speaking. That's a 7-year-old Darrin talking right now. I'm just being a 7-year-old right now, acting out, in a 50-year-old body. So another thing what I do is I read a minimum of 10 pages a day of a good book. Now, here's the key thing. How many in this room like numbers? Show of hands. So let me share something with you. I was labeled with a learning disability and a reading disability. So I had to learn things differently. If you just read 10 pages a day, is it easy to do? Is it easy to read 10 pages a day of a good book? Is it also easy not to do? That's the difference. So I read a minimum of 10 pages a day, and 10 pages a day times 365 days in a calendar year is 3,650 pages. That's 12 to 15 books a year cover to cover. Now, if you just dedicated in a certain area, sales, marketing, relationships, financial, spiritual, health, pick an area of your life, and you spend 10 minutes just reading 10 pages a day. Here's the thing I do, is I have, every time, I take 15 minutes a day of something I want to master. Now, if you take 15 minutes a day times 365 days in a year, it's 94 and a quarter hours a year. So just think about it. If you want to exercise 15 minutes a day, in 1 year, that's 94 hours. 94 hours in 1 year, just from 15 minutes a day. I do 25 push-ups every morning. When I started, it took me 15 minutes to do 25 push-ups because I was so out of shape doing them. Now I can do them in under a minute. The thing is that 25 push-ups is easy to do? Yes. Easy not to? Yes. The difference is 25 times 365 days in a year. Run the numbers. So what I do is just small little things consistently repeated over time. Okay? These are some of the things that I do every day. Another thing what I do, and I'm going to complete in just a moment here, is I reach out to people. Every day I send 3 to 5 text messages, and I ask people, is there anything I can do for you today? Is there anything I can do for you today? And that's all I do is just reach out and ask, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do for you today? How can I be in service to you today? And and sometimes I get a response, sometimes I don't. And people make requests. And sometimes I'll accept the request, decline the request, or counteroffer the request. But I'm making contact with people all the time. And so I want to acknowledge you. As I complete, I want to really acknowledge you for being here today. Because 80% of success is showing up. If you keep showing up, having conversations, collaborating, doing the work on yourself, becoming more and more aware of yourself, how you interact with yourself, how you treat other people, you can be a contribution and create a ripple of impact to people's lives. Because while you're here, never assume you're not being observed. Never assume you're not being observed. People are watching and observing you. Your kids are modeling you. And you can make a huge difference. And I look forward, I'm here till tomorrow night. I'll be flying back to Vancouver tomorrow night. So I look forward to hanging out with you, get to know more about you and your family, and just having a really, really great time. And realize you're in a great place. You're loved being here. And no matter what your background is, no matter where you come from, no matter what mistakes or screw-ups you've done in your life, you're accepted here. Because we're all a bunch of misfits, would you agree? We don't. How many in this room? Be honest. You're not good at having to be an employee or getting a job. This before I say clean. How many in this room, show of hands, honesty, don't like being told what to do? Thank you so much, everyone. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.